You're watching Uncovering Lac La Biche. Today's episode will be a brief look into the early history of our county and community. My name is Marcel. Thank you for watching. The settlement of Lac La Biche predates the arrival of the first Europeans by thousands and thousands of years. Around 10 to 14,000 years ago, a significant migration wave surged into North America due to the opening of the Bering Strait, with southern Siberians likely among the migratory groups based on genetic evidence that we have. This pivotal event occurred as the land bridge between Russia and Alaska emerged, presenting an irresistible opportunity for movement and expansion. The mass migrations commenced soon after the peak of the last ice age, roughly 14,000 years ago. During this time, the natural landscape provided a dynamic backdrop for human exploration and adaptation. The people who ventured into the continent encountered diverse environments, flora, and fauna, shaping their cultural and technological developments. These early settlers demonstrated remarkable resilience and ingenuity, mastering various survival techniques in diverse climates and terrains. Techniques seldom found in today's air conditioning and padded office chair age. Large portions of Canada were once enveloped by expansive ice and snow, known as the Cordilleran and Laurentide glaciers or ice sheets. Even today, remnants of these colossal ice fields bear witness to the historical presence, sculpting valleys and lakes across the landscape as they gradually retreated. Amidst this frozen terrain, a unique feature emerged in the form of the Bering Strait, offering an ice-free corridor that became a crucial pathway for human migration. Travelers could venture down the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains and along the western coast through this passageway. As the Earth's climate gradually warmed, the ice-free corridor expanded, becoming even more accessible for early human populations seeking new lands and opportunities. Approximately 11,000 years ago, this corridor had evolved sufficiently to enable the settlement of Lac La Biche and its surrounding regions. The process of human migration into these territories marked a pivotal moment in the history of North America. The intrepid explorers encountered a diverse range of landscapes, each requiring unique adaptations and skills for survival. These ancient settlers navigated through changing environments and climates, their resilience and ingenuity paving the way for the formation of complex societies in the millennia to come. According to Chippewayan tradition, a fascinating legend recounts the tale of a tall giant named Yaquel, who once obstructed their entry into a desolate and uninhabited land. The giant, who guarded the unexplored territory, became the primary obstacle for the early migrators. Determined to traverse into the new land, the Dane, a group of indigenous peoples, pursued and ultimately vanquished Yaquel. As the giant fell, its immense body stretched across 2 continents, eventually transforming into a petrified bridge connecting these lands. The myth describes how the monster's colossal cadaver formed a bridge that spanned the gap between 2 distant shores, allowing for migration into North America and the Lac La Biche region. It rested on one side, while its head extended far into the territory known today as Cold Lake. This epic legend, passed down through generations, holds significance in Chippewayan culture, serving as a symbol of their ancestors' journey and triumph over formidable challenges. In their own words, the legend says, "In the beginning, there was a tall giant named Yaquel who prevented us from entering this deserted land, which was not inhabited yet. The Dane gave him chase and killed him. His cadaver fell across 2 continents and it petrified. Then it was used as a bridge. The monster's feet were resting on the shore while its head reached as far as Cold Lake." The early peoples that came to inhabit this region were known as Clovis. Named after the distinct stone and bone tools they created, their distinctively shaped fluted stone spear points have been found in large areas of North America, including right here in Lac La Biche. Currently available genetic data finds that roughly 80% of all North and South American indigenous populations share genetic DNA. This data is based on the 12,600-year-old remains found in Montana of the Anzac boy. These early Clovis likely hunted the big game that roamed the northern Alberta landscape. Found in this area was megafauna, gigantic creatures who proved to be quite tasty. Mammoth, camels, giant bison. These animals were quite the staple in the diets of early Clovis. As the years wore on, the Clovis people adapted to their individual regions. Population was booming. The peoples that descended across the Bering Strait could not be said to be the same peoples that inhabited the region. In time, as the Clovis culture split, merged, and amalgamated, the Athabascans came to call the region home. These early Athabascans are the ancestors of the present-day Beaver and Sarcee indigenous nations, who reside in Heart Lake, Janvier, and Cold Lake. In time, the Algonquin-speaking Blackfoot indigenous peoples would also call the region home as well. These two groups show a continuous habitation of the region, through the arrowheads, knives, and pottery that can be found in the region. The land was a place of plenty. Game was abundant, and there was always more fish to be had. The region served as the wintering grounds of the plains bison. Vast herds of them roamed the lands of Lac La Biche, creating a hotspot of activity. The bison stew, I hear, was especially quite delicious. In time, all good things come to an end. In 1670, the Hudson's Bay Company was founded, building trading posts and forts across Rupert's Land, as British Canada at the time was called. These trading posts dealt mainly in the fur trade, transporting large amounts of desired furs back to Europe, all the while filling their pockets with money. The men of the Hudson's Bay Company often lived among the various indigenous nations, incorporating their language and ways of life into their own. In time, these families would begin calling themselves Métis. The first documented Métis child in Canada was Marguerite, the daughter of Jean Nicolet de Belborn and an unknown Nipissing woman. Her name might be lost to history, but her child lives on. The Hudson's Bay Company was an immensely profitable venture. Its company still exists today in stylish clothing. After the end of the 9 Years' War in 1697, which was a colossal war between Britain and France, Britain came to possess almost the entirety of France's North American possessions. The Hudson's Bay Company would have free reign of the fur trade, at least for a time. The great book Lac La Biche Yesterday and Today points to an HBC representative by the name of Anthony Henday as the first European to enter the modern-day Alberta province. In 1754, he was reported to have spent the winter with the Blackfoot Nation near Red Deer. Of this area, he said, "I went with the young men a buffalo hunting, all armed with bows and arrows, killed 7, fine sport. So expert are the natives that they will take the arrows out of them while they are foaming and raging with pain, and tearing up the ground with their feet and horns until they fall down." Henday would have trouble attracting Blackfoot to become trading partners with himself as a middleman between them and the HBC. He noted that, "We have no hopes of getting them to the fort, as what cloth they had were French, and by their behavior, I perceived they were strongly attached to their French interest." This was not to stop the British spirit, as Peter Pond Cross is soon to be called and aptly named Peter Pond Lake in 1778 and set up a successful trading post near Lake Athabasca. If you can't win them over the first time, you just try and try and try again. This trading post proved to be a catalyst for trading activity in the region. In 1795, Fort Edmonton set up shop. The Northwest Company, a direct adversary to the HBC, and a thorn in their coffers, sent David Thompson in 1798, an explorer and representative of the NWC, to cut themselves off a piece of that fur pie. He would, in turn, arrive in the Lac La Biche area to set up a post, swinging down to the North Saskatchewan River, following that to the Pembina River, following that to the Athabasca River, shortly after to Clearwater River and Saskatchewan. Rivers were clearly the best and most fashionable way to get around. Seeing the wealth of the Lac La Biche region, he had this to say: Every intelligent man saw the poverty that would follow the destruction of the beaver. But there were no chiefs to control it. All was perfect liberty and equality. Not to be outdone by the NWC taking their money, the HBC would send Peter Fiddler, who built Greenwich House in the area. The NWC, a bit angry at this development, used every mean and roguish method to force the HBC to retire. Fiddler would report that he was constantly harassed by Canadian men in Lac La Biche, who attempted to prevent the local indigenous populations from trading at Greenwich House. The HBC soon became the place to shop in northern Alberta. The NWC could be roguish all they liked, but they could not beat those prices. Thank you so much for watching. That was just a brief look into the early history of Lac La Biche and the surrounding county. We'll delve into more histories later on, and hopefully with you along the way. Thank you again. My name is Marcel. We'll see you next time.